Welcome. Welcome to Expert Insights, organized by MCOB, which stands for Allied Muslim Chamber of Business. MCOB is a membership-based social enterprise with a mission to create a thriving Muslim business community. It's the power of collective wisdom, continued learning, and thought leadership brought together for Muslims by Muslims. Our core belief is that business leaders thrive when they have access to a supportive community of peers who challenge and inspire each other. Today, we have with us Asad Koshan, who is the founder and CEO of Game Changer Mindsets. He is a high impact leader whose personal core values are built around connecting and empowering people, collaborative servant leadership, and addressing equity issues. He focuses on thematic analysis and developing skills of inquiry and reflection. He operates both in developed and emerging markets. Welcome, Asad.
Good morning, Kashu. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Please share with us a little bit about the organization that you are running and the mission behind it.
Sure, great. Yes, I'm the founder of Game Changer Mindsets. And what we do is we utilize sports movies as the basis for training and development, both to enhance business goals and enhance life skills and professional development for young professionals and seasoned professionals. So we use thematic analysis around the sports movies as a training tool to enhance corporate organizational development and personal development.
All right, sounds good. So you talk about the overall the organization regarding becoming a mastermind, sharpening your questioning skill, analyze like a pro. How do you cultivate a culture of curiosity and effective questioning?
Yeah. Well, you understand, you try to convey half of knowledge is saying, I don't know. And the other half of knowledge is asking good questions. So to encourage the participant to not look for an answer, but to look for a good question. So for example, in one environment, I was in a company, there was a certain amount of turbulence and turnover. So I just asked one question from upper management in front of the staff. I said, what is the one thing that you would like your staff to be able to do better? And I remember it was a quarterly staff meeting, and even the executives thought about it. And so, someone said maybe time management, someone said improve interpersonal skills, but by asking that question, I kind of put the executives in a situation where they had to say, if there was one thing they wanted their staff to improve, what would it be? And that also encouraged the staff to really reflect on what's one thing they can do better to be a more effective employee. So just developing the skill of inquiry, being able to ask questions and ask questions that are relevant to the situation and personal and company growth.
All right, thank you. So in a rapidly changing business landscape, how do you encourage your team to stay analytical and adapt to new challenges?
Well, one is obviously to read a lot, but a big thing is that what I found is it's very important, even if you are middle manager or above, to make sure you interact with people who are not in your industry. What we mean by this is that you interact with people who are not in your industry, but they're smart, they're accomplished, they're well-traveled, they're well-read, but they are necessarily not in your industry. Because if you spend most of your time, say, interacting with people only in your industry, you then risk you have the risk of being in an echo chamber. But if you say that you have different mentors or different people that you interact with, and you want to make sure some of them are, again, not in your industry, and that helps you be able to see, because creativity comes usually not from people who have been in the industry 40 years. Creativity comes from people who've been in the industry 10 or 15 years. Scientific data proves that. So I've made a very concerted effort to make sure I'm regularly talking to people who are not necessarily in the industry in which I was working in at the time, but they were well traveled, they were well read, they had accomplished things on their own, they had built companies, and I found that to be a very effective tool. And if you have that type of broad based type of network, then you are capable of solving problems from multiple perspectives.
All right, that's interesting to hear because I always thought that I didn't know the science behind that. And that's how we formed our peer advisory groups of CEOs within MCOB. In terms of the, and I know you are very like you have been a CPA in your past life, and you have been an accountant and on the operation side as well. How do you balance between relying on data-driven insights and intuition in decision-making processes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the business environment, if you don't have data to support your decisions, you're going to look a little foolish trying to say, well, this is what I feel, right? So, data, you have to be able to support with data. But again, creativity also means you have to be able to push the envelope, and you have to be able to try something that is not standard practice. Okay.
Mhm.
And so what we've done there is that what we look to do here is um, you want to you want to create a situation here in uh, if it doesn't feel right, okay,
Mhm.
then that also matters. So um, decisions should be based on factual data, but
Mhm.
also, does it feel right? Does it sit well with your heart? Does it sit well with human intuition? So, so I've tried to emphasize individual development in that quite a bit in the things that we've worked on.
Okay. And of course, you like in any organization, we are working with people, and it's very important to build those relationships in the team, in your group, and across the organization. How do you foster strong connections and collaboration among team members?
The most important thing there is really the team members, staff, and even seniors need to know that you care, not just about the project and the project goals and the company goals, but about them individually. That individual one-on-one connection. Okay, that doesn't mean you get into people's personal lives or things like that, but you do want them to do well, of course, professionally, but you also want them to do well personally. And what I found is, for example, I remember I was attended a wedding of a staff person. They invited some of the people from the office, and actually one of the parents of the staff came to me and and he interacted a little bit. And then then after the wedding, the staff person came to me and said, my dad met you at my wedding. And he said, listen to the supervisor. He actually cares about you as an individual. So one, and two is humility. That there's 7 billion people in the world, there's 7 billion situations, right? So what worked for me may not necessarily work for someone in a different situation, in a different circumstance. So it's really this empathetic thing that you care, right? That you want them to do well. So you find yourself in environments that you're a supervisor, you're a controller of a company like I was here, and you have a single mother working for you, and there are enormous challenges being a single mom, right? And
Mhm.
during the workday, sure, the procedures are this, but she has to leave work to go pick up her child, right? And if you say no, everything has to be by the book, you can't develop those personal relationships. That's where you have to have a certain amount of flexibility to be able to help that help that person. And so that's the key. One is that if the staff especially believes that you care about them, not just professionally but at a personal level, and two, you approach it with humility.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me of the quote. I think it goes like, I don't care how much you care, how much you know, until I know how much you care.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yes.
so, okay. So that's definitely it's a good approach to connecting with people. Can you share at the you talked about the individuals? Can you share at the team level of how you were using the methodology that you have developed, how you were able to overcome any obstacles and achieving a common goal for the
Okay.
team?
Okay. Yeah. So we can give an example. For example, one of the movies that we utilize in our instructional design is Invictus, which is a true story of Nelson Mandela and the 1994 Rugby World Cup. Now, Nelson Mandela was a fantastic leader, but he also understood human behavior. And what does he do? He unites the entire country of South Africa around the national rugby team. So what happens very early that he becomes the president of South Africa, and the first meeting that the sports association has, they look to ban the Springboks, which was the national team in their colors, because historically through apartheid, the blacks in South Africa they always rooted against the national rugby team because it was a symbol of apartheid. Now Nelson Mandela goes in and says, "You've made a decision with insufficient information. We should not ban the colors of the national rugby team because it will be seen as an attack on the whites in this country." And so he makes a human calculation and he convinces people that in order to unify the country, we can rally around the national rugby team. Okay.
Mhm.
And so this is the thing that you find topics that or issues where your entire team can rally around. And so this is a great it was a great achievement that uh, that he's able to do this. So I use that as a case study to how to mobilize a team. The team could have not just disagreements, but be on totally opposite ends of the spectrum on an issue, but you can still unify them to achieve a certain goal. So by the time that South Africa makes it to the finals, the entire country is in support of the team.
Okay, all right. You take a very interesting approach in terms of when you are building leaders. Now, you are taking stuff from sports, you are taking stuff from movies, and also you are incorporating Sira. Of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Can you tell us, share with us a little bit about how you came up with this methodology?
Yes, so we thought very deeply, like about this, and so what it is we thought that whatever you believe, whatever your belief system is, you believe in rule of law, you believe whatever you believe, that is what drives how you view yourself, how you view your role in your family, and then in society. And so, for example, if I'm in an emerging market, like when I was living in Pakistan and building offshore office there, what I understood is my assessment was the biggest problem in Pakistan is actually negative thinking. It's not load shedding, it's not the political process, it's negative thinking. So how if that's your belief system, right? Then for you to be able to achieve great things is going to be very difficult, right? And for you to be able to work in a group for a collective goal is going to be very difficult if you are negative thinking. Okay, so what and so if you're hiring staff and they don't believe in the company and its goals, they believe that even what you're telling them at face value that this person has some ulterior agenda, it's
Mhm.
very hard to build a company. So how do I change this negative thinking to positive thinking? And so we said is whatever your belief system is, that is what is going to power how you view yourself, how you view your role in the company and even in your family, and then of course in society. So it's a four-gear process: belief, self, family slash company, and then society. And we built instructional design trying to uh, not just focus on the event, right? We wanted to say, okay, don't just describe the event. Tell us the reason behind the reason. And that's how we built the instructional design to use triadic logic. So
Yeah.
should I expound on that a little bit more?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So what we mean on this is like uh, uh, in conflict resolution. So, for example, in one of the movies we use is Remember the Titans. When Mark Boone is hired as a coach, assistant coach, without the head coach says, "Look, I didn't hire you," and Mark Boone says, "Well, we both find ourselves in a situation that we don't want to be in." But we both need to make it work because they're considerations, right? Because the schools are integrating.
Mhm.
So Mark Boone and so the assistant coach diminishes Mark Boone, and instead of saying, "Well, don't talk to me like that," Mark Boone responds by saying, "Well, what an opportunity for me then to work for the best." So by saying something like that in that type of environment, you actually reduce the temperature in a room, right? So a lot of it is learning situation analysis. Just don't describe the event. You start with what happened, then you say, how did it happen? Then the third question is, why is it important? Right? Okay.
Mhm.
And then the last question is, what is unique here? Right? Why is this specific situation unique? If you can ask yourself those four questions with consistency, you will generally not miss anything major in situation analysis. Number one, what happened?
Mhm.
How did it happen? Why is it important? Right? And lastly, what is unique? And so, even when I was teaching youth groups, I tried to say, if you know, because there's so many questions you can ask to evaluate a situation. But if you can consistently ask those four, you're learning the basics of situational analysis, which means then you're on the pathway to critical thinking. So, in the era of overload of information, sometimes it's just conditioning yourselves that any situation that you're facing, okay, can I just ask myself these four questions? And if you begin to do this with some level of regularity, you'll begin to realize, wait a second, I kind of understand. Because most people will spend, when even I did this early in my career, I'm focusing only on the first question: what happened, right?
Mhm.
And the overemphasis on the event, okay, whether it be that we have too many customer backlogs this month, or it be there's too much turnover in the department, right? Or it be underperformance of key staff members. We keep what happened, what happened, what happened. No, well, okay, what happened? How did it happen? Why is this even important, right? Okay, and then lastly, is there something specific unique here that helps tie in the three questions above it?
Okay. All right. So that's definitely a very good framework to follow. And often times in business, we see the businesses that are successful. They show resilience. They show that they are there to learn from the setbacks. Are there any other specific strategies that you think businesses should employ to keep their team motivated and focused on the end goal?
Yeah. Yes, I think there are three really key things. Number one, again, humility, right? We don't understand everything in the era of where business is getting more and more, in one respect, connected, but more complicated. Like every single field went from specialization to super specialization to super specialization, right?
Mhm.
So your entire demeanor has to be that humility. Two, resiliency. That very seldom are you going to get something right the first time, especially when you're trying to do something creative or innovative. Okay.
Yeah.
And three, it's really, really important, uh, and this is extra important in emerging markets, to really understand groupthink. Okay, because groupthink is something that diminishes creativity. Sure, you want a group to be focused on a specific goal, but there's a difference between that and
Mhm.
um, and having thought. For example, in a leadership thing, a real leader understands the difference between he wants people to be loyal to the company and its goals and the team, but they also want an independent thinker, right?
Mhm.
And wannabe leaders, right? They don't understand the difference. It's entirely possible for Gasha for us to be loyal, but they're independent thinkers. What you find in a lot of cases, people say, "Well, a loyalty and independent thinking don't they don't understand it's two sides of the same coin. And
Yep.
so it has to be, one is humility, two is resiliency, and three, understanding the advantages / disadvantages of groupthink. Okay, because when you're in a certain environment and the group is kind of driving in the wrong way, okay, you have to be able to sometimes stop the entire group. So, for example, I'll give you a thing that, say, if you're generally dealing in the IT sector, you'll find most young people who are technical, right? Their thinking is no different than a chef in a restaurant in the United States. The chef in the restaurant thinks what? People come to this restaurant for my food. And I'm the most important person here. And that's partially true, but there's an entire other thing. There's a lot more involved to make that restaurant successful other than the chef's capability. Same thing with the developer. The developer says, look, it's my code. I've written the code. And in one respect, they are the most important. But there's, how do you communicate the business idea? How do you deal with the client? How do you engage with all these things? It's the same principle. So I remember being in that environment, and some of the technical people actually looked kind of down on the functional people, right? No different than how the chef is kind of looking down at the waiters, the staff, right? Even the person who purchases all the supplies, right? Because if the purchaser who purchases supplies purchases second tier supplies, the product that the chef is going to make is going to be second tier. And so it's encouraging people to understand that everyone has a role. Just like a chef in a restaurant needs to understand that the person interacting directly with the customer, the waiter and the waiters, the servers, they have also a very critical role to make that restaurant successful. And the same way in an IT office, the functional people, as well as the technical people, as well as the project managers, they all have very, very important roles. And what you find in a lot of things, especially when there are a lot of young people, right? There's a little bit overemphasis on just my role, just what I'm doing, and to diminish the role of others. And that's also a little bit part of human nature, but this is where understanding groupthink and being able to highlight. So, for example, in one environment, what I did is I actually had a debate of 7 people on each side. I had 7 functional people and 7 technical people. Okay. And I said, what is more important in delivering a project, right? Technical skills or functional skills? And I made the technical people represent the functional side in the debate, and I made the functional people represent the technical position in the debate. And so now they were forced for 2 weeks to do research, right, on the importance of a technical person is now doing the research on the importance of functional skills in delivering a successful project, right? And then the functional people had to do research on the importance of technical skills in delivering a project. And just that one debate, right, it changed the outlook of everybody in the office. Because we didn't just say that, the technical understanding functional role is important. We put them in a scenario analysis and said, listen, and so it was 2 groups of 7. We did this scenario. What is more important in order to deliver a successful IT project? Technical skills or functional skills? And we had one group represent the other. And that exercise really transformed the office.
Okay. All right. In what ways do you personally pursue diverse experiences to broaden your own perspective as a leader?
Well, this was one is, so when we, diversity has in the United States, as DEI has gotten a little bit of a black eye for many reasons, and some of the reasons are actually valid. But one is we make an effort, of course, from a business perspective, to make sure that we are in contact with people who are not in our industry, right? Like even as a CPA, I always made sure I spoke to people that were doing different types of things other than accounting. Okay, right? Okay. 2, we made an effort to also read, right, many different things. Okay, like so we would never read 3 business management books in a row. Okay, and so even diversity. Like I'll give you an example. For example, was building an offshore office, and I began to hire female staff in Karachi.
Okay.
And I actually got a little bit of a push. There was a little bit of a concern from the office in Chicago, because especially in that environment, when you have a deployment, the staff may have to stay to 3, 4, 5 in the morning,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult for female staff to stay those hours, especially in a city like Karachi. But by hiring female staff in that environment, what it actually did, it actually stabilized the office, because the female staff is much more diligent, at least in that environment, in the training process, and they are not looking definitely to snack on the job. Once they find a good environment, at least in that offshore office, they are not looking to learn a technology and then go to Dubai, right, or to the Gulf. So diversity is, it just, I think, when it's reduced to just issues of race, it's problematic. But it should be diversity of thought, okay,
Okay.
diversity of experience, diversity of industry,
Mhm.
and even diversity in terms of levels of experience. So, for example, I don't want to date myself, but we went to school, Kashif, before the internet. Okay.
Yep.
So, our professors, if they assigned us something, they assigned us when we were in physically a classroom. So,
Mhm.
I find, when I'm dealing with the young people, there's a certain, it's very different. That professors assign them when they're not even in the classroom, and they have until 12 o'clock, whatever, Wednesday to fulfill. So I think, first of all, diversity has to be understood beyond the racial component. So it's got to be diversity of thought,
Okay.
diversity of experience, and diversity of industry.
Okay.
And that really helps you look at things from multiple perspectives. So our professional background, that's why our curriculum is a little unique, is actually in 14 different industries: accounting, I'm a CPA, professional trainer, franchising, a restaurant, real estate development, internal audit. We've worked in many different industries, and that is what has allowed us to build such a unique curriculum, because we are just not looking at an issue from a public, from an accounting or finance perspective. We're looking at it from a public relations perspective. We're looking at it from a group dynamics perspective. We're looking at it from a leadership perspective, from an organizational development perspective. So even our gears, belief, self, family, society, this is what is one of our major unique features as a company. And like even our facilitators for all of our companies, that whether it be someone like even Mariam Ali, who's Muhammad Ali's daughter, she was a very successful comedian. She's a very successful social worker who did gang intervention, and she's an author and a public speaker. Okay. Then we have, like Joe. We have Joe Abdullah. Joe Abdullah played professional sports, was a running back for the Denver Broncos. Okay, and now he actually works for a company which I used to work for, Stryker Spine. So here's a person who's a professional athlete, and now he works for a spinal implant company. So these people have diverse experiences. So even all of our facilitators, right, have
Mhm.
multiple industry experience. So, one of the things that we really try to emphasize is try to learn a little bit about a lot of different things rather than learn a lot about one thing, because of the fluidity and with the speed with which how business is changing. The era of you finishing college, getting a job, or going into one thing and working there for 40 years is gone forever.
Yes. Mhm.
And so for that, in order to not just survive, but to thrive, you're going to have broad-based experience and thinking.
Okay. So, what's the message you give? So that's definitely very valuable in terms of on the people who are working in an organization, of how they can diversify themselves by reading like different books, different on different subjects, connecting with different people. When you look at the top, the person sitting at the top as a CEO, what message would you give to them in order for them to create an organization that thrives?
Well, the key would be, okay, enhancing wisdom is a foundation of sound leadership and effective leadership, right? And so, how do you enhance wisdom? Because in the world in which we live, see, you have four things. You have data, you have info, you have knowledge, and you have wisdom. Okay, and in the era of Google, one of the challenges is people mistake data and info for knowledge and wisdom. So that's the first thing you'll see, because like I can Google, I don't know, how to do heart surgery. Doesn't mean that I know how to do heart surgery.
Mhm.
So how do you enhance wisdom? You enhance wisdom, one, by reading, again, diverse books. Two, by listening. Okay, it's very important to, and again, three, by observing. Okay, and four, through mentorship. And especially, and every step, it has to be in multiple industries with multiple different people.
Okay.
So to enhance wisdom, you have, so what is actually wisdom? Wisdom is taking knowledge and putting it in actionable form.
Mhm.
And then, um, wisdom is where other people see complexity, you recognize patterns. Okay, and in order to enhance and develop that skill, right, you have to be well read. You have to be you have to heighten your observation power.
Mhm.
Okay, you have to listen. You have to be better. When we say effective communicator, what any leadership course you say says you have to be a better listener than a better talker, right? And then lastly, it's mentorship. Like, even at this age, there's three people that I consider my mentors that I speak to once a month.
Mhm.
And so, and then this is the other thing with my mentors: when they give me advice, I don't understand it as advice. I understand it as an instruction.
Okay.
And so, uh, and so that has really helped me to be able to uh, thrive in my career. Like, so to give you an example, in uh, uh, we can give multiple examples. Okay, so we'll give you an example of building the offshore office in Pakistan. So we built the first offshore office in Pakistan that did work in Salesforce. This was
Yep.
back in 2010, and so I had relocated to Pakistan. It was a new. I had never worked there professionally, right?
Mhm.
It was a new industry. I had never worked in IT. Okay, so it's a new industry, new country, relocating, and I was living in Lahore, and the offshore office at that time was in Karachi.
Okay.
But alhamdulillah, we took it from 12 billable people to 140 billable people. Okay,
Mhm.
and the challenge was enormous. It's not like you could go into the open market and find people who had experience in Salesforce. You had to hire fresh graduates and train them.
Yep.
And alhamdulillah, after we relocated back to the States, that company actually had a successful exit.
Mhm.
And so, you could be put into a situation, new industry, new company, new country even, and thrive because, first, you're talking to the tech company, people say, listen, I don't have an IT background.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be able to help you with that, but I do understand patterns. I do understand deficits. I do understand problem solving skills. Okay,
Yep.
and I can help you with that. And so, and even that, it was a big deal. Like, when I was hired, I didn't have a single resignation, which is, turnover was only 6%, which is unheard of in an IT offshore office.
Yes.
And but it was those three things. You go with humility. Even when I introduced myself, I said, I am not a developer and I do not have a background in IT. And you can see people are like, well, immediately they're like, well, what are you kind of doing here? Right. But then you said, this is what I don't know, but this is what I do know. And this is what I can do for you and your careers. Okay. So, and then resiliency, you try something. If it doesn't work, you have the humility to course correct. And then
Mhm.
you understand groupthink. You understand, okay, if I can, this is it's a group of only 12. It's easy to influence, a lot easier to influence a group of 12 than it is to influence a group of 120. But once they adopted the philosophy, then everyone that you're hiring is coming into an environment where the existing staff believes in your management philosophy, and they believe in you as an individual, and they understand. Wait a second, and alhamdulillah, we came to a point that we became a preferred employer in that market. That so someone would start in May, and they would go back to their batchmates who are a semester behind them and said, listen, you really need to apply for this company. There's something unique here. And because they're really committed to your professional development and telling you, look, you should be getting at least one certification in Salesforce every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not just telling you that, they're helping you with the training, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's the key. And so it's humility, resiliency, and then understanding groupthink, because you have to understand the positive and the negative impact of groupthink. Usually when it's approached, people are approaching it either from just the negative side or the positive side.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No,
and you have to be able to flip the coin.
Yes. No, thanks for sharing all these nuggets, and I hope our leaders look into these areas, and because they are important. They are very important in terms of developing the softer skills of your team members, and so they are every day they feel that they are growing. They are achieving something. They are, and they are not just growing professionally, but they are growing personally as well. So thank you for sharing that, because this approach will change lives. This approach will change the mindset from just working for a paycheck to working to make an impact, to become a better person, to become a better professional person, and personally become a better human. So thank you so much, Asad, for sharing these tactics, these approaches, and anybody who is interested in learning more about Asad's work, we'll be sharing the link to his website and the game changer mindsets, and also link to his profile on LinkedIn, and so you can connect with him and learn some new things. Again, the approach is very, like, it intrigued me in terms of how you are taking things from movies, from sports, and from a spiritual side, and mixing them together in terms of developing leaders. So thank you, Asad, for being here on Expert Insights, and looking forward to continuing the conversations.
Thank you so much, Kashif, and thank you so much to the AMCOM team, and thank you for the participants also. It was an honor to be here.
All right. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome. Welcome, Salam.